The lights inside the studio of The View felt brighter than usual. Meghan Markle stepped onto the stage, dressed in a crisp white suit, smiling softly as the audience clapped. Her walk was slow, calm, almost royal. She took her seat at the center of the panel beside Joy Behar, Whoopi Goldberg, Sunny Hostin, and Alyssa Farah Griffin. The show had been marketed as a warm, personal conversation. A chance for Meghan to speak about motherhood, her charity work, and the next chapter of her life. Nothing controversial, nothing raw. That's what her team had been promised, but things changed quickly. The opening moments were smooth. Whoopi offered kind words. Sunny praised her work with women's rights. Meghan spoke gently, thanking them, keeping her tone soft and measured. But then Joy leaned forward, her voice still light, but with a sharp edge. "So, Meghan," she said with a smirk, "after everything, the royal drama, Netflix, Spotify, podcasts, headlines, do you ever think maybe people are just tired of hearing about it?" The question hit like a stone. There was a brief pause, a strange silence, followed by a few awkward laughs from the audience. Meghan didn't laugh. Her smile faded just slightly, and she blinked twice, as if trying to decide whether she'd been insulted or misunderstood. "I didn't come here to repeat old stories," Meghan said, keeping her voice steady. "I came here to speak about the causes I care about, the work ahead, the real issues." Joy didn't back down. "Right? But don't all those causes somehow circle back to you? I mean, it's always your story, your pain, your truth. Isn't that a little much?" The air tightened. Behind the cameras, producers began pacing. This wasn't the script. This wasn't supposed to be a confrontation. Meghan leaned forward slightly, her fingers laced together. "With respect," she said, "if standing up to racism, abuse, ad manipulation is a little much, then maybe we need to redefine what too much really means." The tension rose. Whoopi glanced at the floor. Alyssa tried to jump in, offering a question about Meghan's foundation, but Joy pushed on. "Relax, Meghan. It's The View. We debate, we joke. If you can't handle some heat, maybe this isn't your stage." That was the moment something broke. Meghan's voice didn't shake. It rose firm and clear. "This isn't heat. It's performative cruelty dressed up as commentary. You're not asking questions. You're making me the headline again, just for ratings." Gasps rippled from the crowd. Joy blinked, surprised. "You think I'm cruel?" "I think this platform should know the difference between a conversation and a trap," Meghan replied. "And right now, it feels like you wanted a viral clip, not a real talk." In the control room, someone whispered into the headset, "We need to cut to commercial." But the cameras kept rolling. Meghan looked around the table. "I've been mocked, silenced, and blamed for telling the truth. I was invited here to share my work, but once again, I'm being asked to defend my right to exist." Silence. Even Joy had no comeback. Backstage, a studio intern watched the screen, mouth open. Ratings had spiked 40% in the last 5 minutes. This wasn't just an interview anymore. It was something else, something bigger. The clip from The View spread across social media like fire in dry wind. Within hours, millions had watched the tense exchange between Meghan Markle and Joy Behar. The hashtags #MeghanSpeaks, #TheViewMeltdown, and #performative cruelty were trending across the globe. News anchors debated it, influencers dissected it, and late-night hosts teased it, but beneath the surface, something darker was moving. That night, Meghan sat in her living room in Montecito, watching the coverage with a blank expression. Harry stood behind her, arms crossed, silent. Her team, gathered in the kitchen, debated the next step. Stephen Colbert just called. Her manager said, "He wants to do a special segment tomorrow night. Just you. Live. Meghan asked, not looking away from the screen. "Yes, one-on-one. He says he wants to give you the space to tell your story, your way, full control." Meghan said nothing for a moment. Then quietly, There's no such thing as full control. Still, she agreed. The next morning, as the world buzzed, Meghan flew to New York under tight security. No media announcements. Press briefings. It's just a quiet entrance through a back door at CBS Studios where Colbert's team waited, polite but tense. Backstage, Colbert greeted her. He looked tired, holding a stack of notes. "I appreciate you coming," he said. "I'm not here to clear my name," she replied. "I'm here to clear the fog." Colbert nodded. "You'll have your say." But Meghan noticed something strange in his eyes, a flicker of discomfort, a hesitation. He wasn't just preparing for a talk show segment. He was holding something back. The show began like any other, a monologue, a few jokes, the usual applause. Then the tone shifted as Stephen announced a rare, unedited conversation with Meghan Markle. She walked onto the stage under soft lights, greeted warmly by the audience. She smiled, but it didn't reach her eyes. Colbert's first few questions were respectful about her charity work. Her new projects, her recent experience on The View. Meghan answered with grace, though her body stayed tense. Then came the change. Colbert leaned forward slightly and said, "Meghan, I have something here I'd like your thoughts on." He pulled a printed document from his lap and unfolded it carefully. It's an excerpt from a leaked intelligence memo. One that mentions your name, repeatedly. Meghan's smile froze. The audience stilled. "This document," Colbert continued, "suggests that your public image, your entire public arc, was viewed by some within the British diplomatic system as a strategic soft power asset. A tool, they say, to repair post-Brexit Commonwealth relations." He laid it on the table between them. "I want to be fair," Colbert added. "But people are asking, did you know you were being used this way?" Meghan didn't answer immediately. She looked at the document, then at Colbert. "You're holding a weapon," she said softly, "and asking me if I gave you permission to aim it." Gasps from the audience. "I had no idea about this," she continued. "But I'm not surprised. When you're part of an institution, you stop being a person. You become a symbol. And symbols don't get to say no." Colbert looked uneasy. He hadn't expected that answer. "Sorry," he said. "But don't you think the public deserves to know whether your story was curated?" Meghan leaned forward. "No, I think the public deserves to know who's doing the curating." The lights seemed to dim slightly. The studio was silent. No laughter, no applause. "This isn't about me," she said. "It never was. It's about a system that builds you up just to sell your fall. And the press, the platforms, the late-night hosts." She glanced around. "They're part of that system." Colbert tried to steer back. "But Meghan, you've had a platform, Netflix, Spotify, bestsellers. Is that not control?" "Survival," she replied. "When the world reduces you to headlines, the only way to fight back is to speak louder than the noise." And then, almost as if on cue, the lights flickered. A quiet hum passed through the studio. Technical glitch. Or something else. Colbert looked toward his producer. Meghan didn't flinch. "I'm not afraid of the truth," she said. "But I think a lot of powerful people are afraid that I'm still here to tell it." By the time the interview ended, Twitter was flooded. News outlets ran breaking headlines. But behind the scenes, Meghan's team received a warning. An anonymous email. No subject line, just a single sentence. "You were never meant to read that memo." And Meghan knew this was no longer a media controversy. It was a war for the narrative. The morning after the Colbert interview, the world was on fire. Clips of Meghan confronting Stephen had reached every corner of social media. One phrase trended in bold across platforms. "You're holding a weapon." Some praised her for her composure and courage. Others accused her of deflection, dramatics, or paranoia. News outlets scrambled to find the source of the leaked memo mentioned during the interview-worked protocol, a name that had not existed in any public record until now. But inside the intelligence and diplomatic communities, the name was Reland. Radioactive. In a secure building in London, high-level British officials held an emergency meeting. A confidential briefing circled among government desks. Orchid Protocol had been intended for quiet strategy, not public scandal. It was a soft power directive drafted post-Brexit to reshape Britain's cultural diplomacy in former colonies India, Jamaica, Kenya, South Africa. Meghan Markle, biracial, American, and married into the monarchy, was seen as the perfect modern face of reconciliation. But she had walked away. And now, somehow, the document had made it into Colbert's hands. The question was, how? Meanwhile, in Montecito, Meghan sat with her legal advisor, Jessica Kilpatrick, and a former intelligence consultant named Dorian Wayden, old contact from Harry's army days. The three sat in silence around a wooden table while Dorian scanned a printed copy of the leaked memo, line by line. "It's real," he said finally. And whoever leaked it wanted to do more than embarrass the palace. They wanted to provoke a collapse. Meghan stared out the window. Then why aim it? Through a talk show. "Because it works," Dorian replied. "You went live, no edits, no delay. You became a global megaphone." Jessica looked up from her phone. "You've got 5 lawsuits already filed. Mostly defamation claims from people named in the Orchid memo." "Let them come," Meghan said. "I won't be silenced again." That evening, a second leak appeared, this time from an encrypted source sent directly to a Berlin-based journalist known for exposing covert surveillance operations. The files were more detailed, not just memos, but recordings, meeting minutes, even draft press releases prepared in advance for controlled narratives in case Meghan's marriage failed. Among the documents, one name stood out: Project Nightingale. Dorian's face paled as he read it aloud. This wasn't just about promoting you," he said. "It was about controlling you." Nightingale was psychological counter-intel, designed to discredit softly those who didn't cooperate with Orchid. Meghan felt the air go thin around her. Everything they wrote, everything they whispered to the press, it's planned, Dorian finished. Engineered. At that exact moment, thousands of miles away in Nairobi, a woman stepped off a motorbike and entered a dim cafe with no signboard. She placed a USB drive on the counter and ordered black tea. Her name was Rachel Shaw. She had once worked as a subcontractor for a private firm that fed data into Orchid Protocol's behavioral modeling engine. When she realized what her work was being used for, she vanished, quitting, changing her name, moving through countries under false identities. But when she saw the Colbert interview, she knew it was time. On the USB drive were internal training, slides, AI analysis logs, and 3 emails between UK diplomatic staff and American tech liaisons discussing containment strategy for Meghan Markle. The final email read, "She's slipping outside our predictive influence. We recommend activation of Nightingale-level tactics." Rachel uploaded it all to a secure server. The countdown to exposure had begun. Back in California, Meghan's phone buzzed. An anonymous message: "If you want the rest of the truth, you'll need to go to Berlin." Meghan didn't hesitate. "Book the flight," she said to Jessica. "I want to meet the woman who broke their machine." Harry placed his hand on hers. "Are you sure?" She looked at him, eyes steady. "They've watched me long enough. It's time I watch them back." As the plane climbed into the night sky, news of Project Nightingale began spreading quietly among the few reporters brave enough to touch it. One anchor whispered into her mic just before cutting to commercial. "This story doesn't end with Meghan Markle. Begins with her." The flight to Berlin was quiet, but Meghan's mind was anything but. She sat near the window, staring into the dark sky, watching clouds drift beneath the wing like ghosts. Her phone buzzed every few minutes, messages from legal teams, alerts from news outlets, updates from Harry. She ignored them all. It's only one thing mattered now: finding Rachel Shaw. Dorian Wade sat across from her, flipping through a secured tablet filled with digital backups of the leaked Orchid Protocol files. Each time he zoomed in, Meghan caught flashes, flowcharts, heat maps of media reactions, redacted photos of her and Harry taken without their knowledge. All of it cataloged, analyzed, controlled. "I'm starting to wonder," Meghan whispered, "how much of my life I actually lived, okay? And how much was planned for me." Dorian looked up. "That's what they wanted, to make you doubt your own memories." She nodded slowly. It almost worked. They landed at a private airstrip just outside Berlin before dawn. A black SUV waited at the edge of the runway, windows tinted, engine running. The driver handed Meghan a plain envelope with a handwritten name inside, SHAW. Inside was an address and a single word, midnight. The apartment was located in Kreuzberg, an aging building surrounded by modern high-rises. The hallway smelled of smoke and wet concrete. Meghan knocked once, then again, a long pause. Then the door opened. Rachel Shaw looked nothing like Meghan had imagined. Younger, thin, her hair was buzzed short, her eyes were tired but sharp. She wore a plain black hoodie and jeans, and behind her, the apartment was barely furnished: a desk, a mattress on the floor, a wall filled with pinned documents and red string. "You brought him?" Rachel asked, nodding at Dorian. Meghan answered, "He helped me see the truth. That's more than most have done." Rachel let them in without a word. Shh. Pointed at the wall that, she said, is the real protocol. Orchid was only the public version. It looked clean, strategic. But Nightingale, that was the shadow. That was the kill switch. Meghan stepped closer. Photos of her from years ago were pinned alongside internal memos. One stood out, an email titled Public Sentiment Correction, Stage 3. It included talking points meant for TV hosts, social media influencers, even satire writers. "Wait," Meghan said. "They fed talking points to comedians." Rachel nodded. "They tested how many times your name could be associated with attention-seeking before audiences stopped questioning the story. The answer: 7. They tested it like advertising, except the product was your downfall." Meghan stared at a file labeled Nightingale Simulation, Emotional Deconstruction Curve. It showed a line graph predicting her emotional reaction to specific public events: miscarriage rumors, family rejection, career setbacks, all projected, all timed. "How did you get this?" Meghan asked. "I was on the modeling team, till I realized the model was being used to break you, not protect you." Dorian stepped in. "Can we prove it?" Rachel opened a drawer and pulled out a hard drive. "This has audio recordings, time briefings. They discuss methods to destabilize subjects' public poise using psychological triggers. That means they planned the Colbert leak. Not him, not his team. He was used like the rest of us." Meghan went cold. Rachel added, "They even had backup plans in case you confronted it." "Do you know what that means?" Meghan whispered. "It means we haven't seen their worst." Outside the window, a van had parked across the street. The headlights stayed off, but both Meghan and Dorian noticed it at the same time. "We've been followed," Dorian said. "They're monitoring us. Maybe more." Rachel moved fast. "Take the hard drive. It's a secured journalist contact in Geneva. She's waiting. If I disappear, she'll publish everything." "I'm not leaving you here," Meghan said firmly. "You don't have a choice," Rachel replied. "The story now, I'm just the source. They won't stop chasing me, but you still have the microphone." Sirens echoed faintly in the distance. Rachel handed Meghan a second envelope. Inside it were 3 more names-coded aliases connected to Orchid's top-level architects. Meghan stared at them. One name was familiar, someone she had once trusted. Dorian opened the door. "We need to move now." Rachel gave Meghan a final look. "They turned your life into a weapon. Time to fire back." As they ran down the stairs, the van door outside cracked open. A man in black stepped out, holding a phone, speaking into it rapidly. Meghan, clutching the hard drive to her chest, didn't look back. Not anymore. In the back seat of the car, as Berlin's streets blurred by, She whispered to herself, "They built a machine to control my voice, but I still have it. And I will use it." The journey from Berlin to Geneva felt like crossing a border between fear and fury. Meghan sat in the back of the armored SUV, holding the encrypted hard drive against her chest like it was her last breath of truth. Dorian was beside her phone, in one hand, weapon holstered at his waist. The road behind them had been cleaned for over an hour, but neither of them relaxed. Not yet. The car pulled into a private tunnel beneath the International Press Federation building. Waiting at the elevator was Isabel Voss, a veteran journalist with a reputation for leaking what others feared to say. She wore a navy trench coat and black gloves, her expression sharp but calm. "I got the signal from Rachel," Isabel said, without wasting time. "You're safe for now." But the window's small. She guided them to a private floor secured by biometric lock. Inside was a war room, maps, files, computer terminals, and a live feed tracking global chatter on Orchid and Project Nightingale. "I've already verified parts of the hard drive," Isabel said, plugging it into an air-gapped system. "Emails, data sets, simulations, but this." She paused, scrolling through audio files. "This is the crown jewel." She played a clip. A man's voice came through, a fine British, cold. "The subject's emotional resilience is higher than forecasted. Nightingale Phase 3 authorized. Utilize social saturation tactics. Leak scheduled for late-night programming. Public. Collapse must feel self-inflicted." The air in the room turned to ice. Meghan's eyes were locked on the screen. She didn't blink. "He's talking about the Colbert interview." "Yes," Isabel nodded. "And he's not just some strategist. He's government adjacent. We found him listed as a liaison between GCHQ and an American firm called Graythorn Global." Dorian swore under his breath. "Graythorn, that's worse than intelligence. That's privatized manipulation. It's unregulated and disposable." Isabel zoomed in on a name attached to the audio file. G. Carrington. Meghan's breath caught. She knew that name. Gideon Carrington. A former diplomatic advisor who'd once met her during her early royal public tours. He'd shaken her hand, told her she was the fresh face the monarchy needed. That same man had now signed her psychological execution order. "I want to name him," Meghan said. Isabel hesitated. "If you do, they'll push back harder. They'll try to discredit you all over again, this time with no hesitation." Meghan stepped closer. "Then let them. But this time I won't be quiet." Just then, Isabel's assistant burst through the door. "You need to see this." They turned to a screen where a live feed of a parliamentary emergency session in London was unfolding. A senior MP, red-faced and sweating, had just been handed a leaked dossier, one of the documents from the Orchid dump. He read from it, trembling. "This protocol outlines psychological destabilization measures against a British citizen, married to the sixth in line to the throne. This is a violation not just of law, but of decency." The chamber erupted. Journalists outside the hall shouted questions. One even said aloud what others feared to whisper. Was the palace involved? Meanwhile, Graythorn Global released a cold denial, claiming all allegations were deeply false and rooted in conspiracy. But they couldn't stop the fire. The files Meghan carried were already being mirrored across global platforms. Rachel's failsafes had activated. Even if she vanished, the truth would live. But then came the message. A single notification appeared on Dorian's encrypted phone. "Shaw compromised. Tracking beacon activated. You have 90 minutes." Meghan's chest tightened. Rachel, she had risked everything, and now she was being hunted like a ghost. "Who?" "Spoke too loud. We need to move," Dorian said. "They'll come for this location next." Isabel nodded. "I have one more contact, Al Jazeera's International Investigative Desk. They'll air it live, but you have to do it now." Meghan looked out the window at the snowy Geneva skyline. She'd been a princess, a celebrity, a mother, a wife. A woman trying to survive a system that tried to make her vanish. Now she had one role left, truth teller. She turned back to Isabel, set up the feed. I want to speak. Within minutes, lights were positioned, a microphone clipped, a camera adjusted. No script, no teleprompter. As the world tuned in to their screens, expecting gossip or a PR spin, they saw instead a woman standing in front of a dark background. Barefaced, resolute, she stared directly into the lens. My name is Meghan Markle, and everything you thought you knew about me was designed for you. She held up a file, the first page of Orchid Protocol, and this ... is the design. The moment Meghan's live transmission began, the world stopped scrolling. On television, phones, laptops, and smartwatches across the globe, a quiet, unfiltered image of her appeared. No royal palace, no stage lights. Just Meghan standing under dim studio lamps in Geneva, holding the very first leaked page of Orchid Protocol in her hand like a loaded weapon. Behind the scenes, a multilingual team of journalists from Al Jazeera and allied press agencies worked in silent coordination. The documents had been verified, mirrored, encrypted, and time-stamped. Even if they were attacked, the data would survive. Meghan's voice was steady, but each word felt like it was chiseled from stone. You were never supposed to see this, she began, holding up the page. This is the blueprint for a media machine designed not to inform, but to manipulate, to control narratives, to decide who gets heard and who gets destroyed. She explained Orchid Protocol in simple terms. A psychological strategy project birthed after Brexit, aimed at using public figures as emotional leverage in countries with rising anti-colonial sentiment. She showed emails between British officials and media outlets discussing which kinds of interviews she should be steered to Wardand, which she should be blocked from. And then she said the name. Gideon Carrington, she stated clearly, was one of the lead architects. I met him, trusted him. He called me a symbol of progress. But behind closed doors, he called me an asset to be shaped. The control room behind the camera fell completely silent. In London, Gideon Carrington's office went dark. Security detail activated emergency protocol. The palace issued a brief statement. We are aware of the allegations and reviewing materials at this time. But by then, public opinion was shifting like an avalanche, Meghan continued. I've been told to smile, to stay quiet, to be graceful in the face of abuse, public and private. And when I spoke, I was told I was too loud, too angry, too sensitive. She paused, locking eyes with the camera. No one ever asked what I was protecting myself from. She then played the audio recording, Carrington authorizing Nightingale Protocol Phase 3. The audience heard it in his own voice, clear and chilling. Destabilization will be most effective following minor scandal saturation. Create noise, then. Let her crack on live broadcast. Was a planned psychological ambush. The Colbert confrontation wasn't just messy TVIT, was weaponized disruption. The clip ended. Meghan let the silence sit heavy. I didn't break, she said softly. You just didn't like that I didn't. She showed more files talking. Points crafted for late-night hosts, suggested hashtags given to influencer agencies. Even PR templates ready to publish in case of her emotional volatility. All of it, years in the making. Back in Montecito, Harry sat on the floor with their children asleep upstairs. He watched her broadcast from a private feed, his hands shaking on the mug of tea he never drank. In Nairobi, Rachel Shaw sat in a dark cafe with a new passport and a burner phone, eyes wet as she watched her own data go public, finally unburied. And in Washington, a U.S. senator tweeted just 2 words, hold hearings. Meghan finished her speech with no tears, no rehearsed ending. I am not your product. I am not your cautionary tale. And if you're watching this thinking I'm still playing the victim, ask yourself, Who benefits when a woman speaking the truth is labeled anything but dangerous? She stepped back from the mic. The screen faded to black. No credits. No music. Just silence. But that silence didn't last long. Within minutes, whistleblowers from other countries, Canada, India, Nigeria, began anonymously submitting their own fragments of orchid-like programs. Patterns began to emerge. Public figures in media, sports, even activism who had mysteriously fallen from favor after challenging colonial legacies or speaking about systemic injustice. This wasn't just Meghan's story anymore. It was global. And then, just as the world began catching its breath, a final email leaked from a hidden Graythorn server. It was dated just 1 week before Meghan's Colbert appearance. The subject line read, "Failsafe. Markle contingency priority red." The body said only, "If public exposure begins, move to phase 5. Silence her completely." The world barely had time to absorb Meghan's broadcast before the next shock hit. The leaked email, "Markle contingency priority red," surfaced across whistleblower platforms within an hour. Simple, chilling. 5 words that shattered any illusion that this was ever just a PR war. It was now something else entirely. Phase 5. Silence her completely. By midnight, #ProtectMeghan trended across platforms. Human rights groups issued statements. Unadvisors requested emergency briefings. Journalists began digging not just into Orchid and Nightingale, but into Graythorn Global, a security intelligence firm that had quietly operated in over 18 countries under dozens of names. And Meghan Markle, she was gone, not missing. Hidden after her broadcast ended, her team had moved swiftly. Dorian shut down digital trackers. Isabel Voss sent out 3 decoy press passes across European borders. Only 4 people in the world knew where Meghan had been taken, 'cause now silence wasn't just a threat, was a tactic. Back in Montecito, Harry watched armed security surround their home. Their children were safe, relocated under new identities for the time being. But his eyes read sleepless, stayed locked on encrypted messages arriving by the minute. One stood out. Geneva Tower compromised. Red asset in motion. Evacuate node. He looked up at his personal security chief. They're coming. Across the Atlantic, Gideon Carrington faced a different storm. Journalists camped outside his estate. Parliament issued an emergency inquiry. He denied everything, said the emails were fabrications, the recordings, deepfakes. But the problem wasn't just public backlash now. I think it was that Graythorn had gone. Quiet, no denials, no legal threats, just silence. It was a silence that frightened even Carrington. In a hidden safe house in Zurich, Meghan sat quietly with Rachel Shaw. Both women wore casual clothes, their hair tucked under caps. They drank bitter coffee and reviewed files by candlelight because no digital signal could be trusted. "I never expected to survive this far," Rachel admitted. "I didn't expect to have to become this person," Meghan said softly. Then her phone buzzed once only. One contact had that. "Encrypted channel, Harry. They've issued a warrant in the U.S. for data theft. They're trying to block international protections. Can't come home yet." Meghan closed her eyes. Even now, they were trying to make her the villain. Not the abuser, not the manipulator, but the woman who dared expose it all. They wanted her name back on talk shows not for admiration, but for mockery. They wanted to reframe the narrative, return her to the role she was cast in years ago. Unstable, divisive, emotional. But it was too late. Al Jazeera was broadcasting 24/7's coverage of Orchid Protocol now, connecting it to similar operations in Africa and Asia. The BBC, under pressure, aired segments questioning government involvement. In psychological targeting, the New York Times ran a front-page headline, "Truth was never the threat. The woman who spoke it was." And then, as if fate were making a statement, another leak appeared. This time, it wasn't from a whistleblower. It was from within Graythorn Global itself. The file was titled Markle's Simulation Failure. Internal review. Inside were notes from internal meetings. It detailed how Meghan's refusal to crack had rendered predictive modeling obsolete. That celebrity manipulation methods proved ineffective, and that her persistence in messaging and alignment with human rights narratives made her dangerously resonant. Dangerously resonant. The words that finally united the world in outrage. Thousands flooded into London in peaceful protest. Meghan's face appeared on murals in Nairobi, Mumbai, and Toronto, not as a duchess, not as a celebrity, but as a whistleblower. And finally, when her voice was no longer just a voice, but a movement, Meghan Markle returned. Not through a royal platform, not through Hollywood. She walked into a packed press hall at The Hague, standing beside international human rights attorneys, journalists, and former intelligence operatives who'd backed her claims. And without notes, she said, they tried to erase me with silence, but now the silence is theirs to live with. I do not want revenge. I want accountability. And for every person who has ever been reduced to a headline, you are not alone. Not anymore. A standing ovation followed. But Meghan didn't smile. She looked straight into the cameras and whispered, now. Show them everything. And in that moment, what began as a royal scandal became one of the greatest political exposures of the century. Not because Meghan Markle was flawless, but because she refused to break quietly.